All right, listen up. I'm going to give you 3 things to do when you're exposed to a food you're sensitive to and how to lower those symptoms. All right, welcome back, everyone, to Life Revived with NJ Peterson. If you can kind of tell with my background today, I'm in Mexico visiting my parents, and I'm going to talk about the 3 different things that you can do if you're exposed to some inflammatory foods or things that you might be sensitive and how to lower those symptoms. Maybe I should say hola, bienvenido, well, hello and welcome. But, it's one of those things that when we're making different health changes and we're working on our health, especially with chronic disease, we eventually identify some certain things that we know are the most problematic for us. And even when you're doing the best you possibly can, it's likely that at some point in time you're going to have a reaction, you're going to have kind of a flare up, right, that you can't avoid. And that thing just happened to me the other day, and I'm still a little swollen from it today. But back in the day, when I get exposed to those foods, I can gain 13 pounds within a day, where my wife will actually sit across the table from me and say, I can see you swelling, right? Not something a husband wants to hear when he's at a romantic dinner with his wife, you know what I mean? But I want to give you some actionable things that you can start doing today when you're exposed to those foods that cause that inflammation. And inflammation looks different than everybody else. For me, it's very obvious. I gain a lot of weight. I get very swollen. I get an upset stomach. For some people, it's pain driven. For others, it's headaches. For others, it's upset stomachs, right? But when you're exposed to these different inflammatory foods, what are the things that you can actually do? And I'm going to give you 3 of them. The benefit is, stick around to number 3, because this is something that when done properly is absolutely free, okay? It does need to be practiced a little bit ahead of time. Something becomes more of a lifestyle thing. But number 3 is one of my favorite tools to use when it comes to health, and especially reducing inflammation, especially reducing symptoms when it comes to those inflammatory responses to foods, okay? So when we're going through these, right, I think we have to remember that we're all different, right? And it's important to take time to identify what those foods are or what those triggers are for you, because ultimately avoiding them is going to be the best response possible, right? And when I say, you might be noticing, I'm saying things that you're sensitive to, right? Things that cause inflammation. This is different than an allergy. Now, allergies come with their own set of reactions, and some of these things that I'm going to talk about do have the potential to help you with that. But ultimately, an allergy is a very different thing, and I'm talking about sensitivities, something your body reacts to when it's exposed, a toxin, a food, a stressor of some sorts. So make sure you identify the difference between a sensitivity and an allergy, and make sure to take the time to identify what those foods are for you, because then these next steps will help you determine which one might be best for you, all right? So number 1, bind. Right? This is a supplement that I just love to do. It's basically a combination of multiple binders, hence the name bind, that when taken will absorb that toxic effect. Like, it'll absorb the toxin so that it does not trigger your body's inflammatory system. Now, I think it's also important to note that none of these are foolproof, right? But I'll try to put it in here. Maybe I'll put it earlier in the video of just how swollen I was, right? You'll be able to see a shot of my feet, and how I'm able to recover from that quickly is by targeting and absorbing that, right? I can't do anything about the exposure, but this bind, for instance, is a perfect way to say, I've gotten that exposure. I can take this bind to help absorb those toxins, remove them from my body's potential reactivity to it, okay? So number 1 is bind, and I'm going to put the link down for these down below if you wanted to give them a try, see if they work for you. The next one is enzymes. Now, this is kind of like a 2-part aspect of things, because my exposure was wheat. I'm very reactive to gluten, okay? And even when I'm asking, is everything gluten-free, and I've learned how to do it in Spanish, I was eating something and I was like, whoa, that tastes like soy sauce. A lot of soy sauce has wheat in it. And sure enough, I confirmed. They told me it was gluten-free. They went back, they found out. They were very apologetic, which was great, but I had gotten that exposure. And so that can mean a lot for me. So as soon as I knew that, I took my bind, but I also I took the specific enzymes that I know work best for me which is the enzyme that helps break down wheat and dairy, right? So it's called Z-gluten. I'll put that in the link down below too. But just the different digestive enzymes are great for keeping inflammation down. And when you're eating things that you know cause inflammation, even if it's something like more grains, you know, where it's not necessarily sensitivity, but if you're insulin resistant, you eat grains, it's going to cause your inflammation. Taking some of those digestive enzymes can actually help process those, therefore not as big of an insulin response, not as much inflammatory aspects to it. And so bind is number one, different enzymes is number two, and number three, the gold in all of this is a practice, right, that's becoming more popular now, but called intermittent fasting, right? Now, yes, this does need to be practiced before getting into time, but before getting to that sensitivity or before taking that trip. But intermittent fasting basically forces your body to be more efficient and for it to basically remove inefficient cells and like other processes or cells that don't work as properly. So when you intermittent fast, your body is used to these different variations of diet. And so when I got that exposure, I just did a longer fasting day the next day than I normally would do. Let my body recover, let it clear the inflammation, let it feel better. And it was interesting because I was even part of a phone call where we compare certain health readings like HRV, heart rate variation, heart rate, sleep cycles, those types of things. And they were kind of giving me a hard time because you can see when I got that exposure, my numbers were terrible. And then just by taking that step back, using the supplements that I know help me recover, doing my intermittent fasting, boom, I snapped back right pretty quickly. And I was actually super surprised at how good my numbers were. And my accountability partners were actually a little irritated because of how well it responded. So there's nothing that beats planning ahead, right? Trying to remove the foods, trying to avoid them as best as possible. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some recipes for you down below along with those links so that, Christmas or not Christmas, but it is around the corner. But Thanksgiving, depending when you're watching this, is just a week away. Make sure you're planning for different recipes that you might enjoy, right? So I'm going to put some recipes down below for you. I'm going to be coming out with a whole other conversation about foods and how they trigger insulin resistance, as well as intermittent fasting. So make sure to stay tuned. Check out one of the other videos that I've already posted. And like I said, I'm giving you away the gold here. And so I want you to be happy. I want you to be healthy. And I want you to live a life revived. So try those things out. Check out the supplements. Look at intermittent fasting. And ultimately, I'll see you again soon.